Next we have old business, and that's the affiliation, and I will give a quick report. The team from our team did meet this week ago, 2 weeks ago. David and Sarah and Steve and Tom and I can't remember, but we met. The team continues to work on a possible transaction structure for the affiliation of Astria Health, and it's based on research into proposed structures, and we will review a workable model. So we've been studying and looking at a variety of models for what would work best for us. Both the Snoqualmie Valley Hospital and Astria have negotiating teams are continuously optimistic about the model they are proposing, provided a path forward. The compromise model, there's some questions about, but there's a lot of discussion about whether it will work or not. And we think right now that it might work. And that's with some information from Public Health Department. Snoqualmie Valley Hospital and Astria are working with a brokerage firm that issued the hospital's bonds, Piper Jeffrey, to determine bondholder involvement and estimate timeline and assistance for the bondholder communication. That's a major issue that we need to look at. Okay, so next.
Let me question. So
yes.
It is just the legal team meeting with the negotiating team. There is no LOI that has been processed, correct?
No,
Okay.
there's not.
Okay.
There has not.
Just want to clarify.
Yeah, no, there's no LOI.
Is there a projected date for the LOI?
There is not at this time. We're still in pretty preliminary. I think some of those things are premature.
Okay. So So how much? What time frame are we looking at? Or what phase are we at this point where the concern is, where we are continually have to look at our consultants, professional fees, and the longer we wait, the longer the money is gonna dry up. So I'm concerned. So I remember when they first gave us the initial phasing bid, that there was a graph that said that at this level 6, I can't remember now, but that where we are going to be at that time. My concern is we only have one RFP, and it's taking us almost $65,000 on the whole. And my understanding that there was a $200,000 on the budget that was entered for 2018 that we have voted on for the consultants. Now, how did this happen?
Well,
Which I wasn't aware that it was snuck in there.
No, it's not snuck in there.
Oh.
When we put together a budget, we want to anticipate potential costs, but they're not costs that are specific to any new contracts. But we would be kicking ourselves later if we needed to get more help from consultants or especially legal services for the affiliation, and we had not put any money aside in our budget. So we put money aside in the budget, but we have no new contract. And with respect to the Hedner and Cave contract, their costs are consistent with the phasing approach that they projected. We're currently now in the due diligence phase of that agreement, and so we're consistent with where they projected that we would be in terms of the kind of work that they are doing.
Okay, I guess for the sake of fiscal responsibility, I would call, if we, which is at this point it might be mute because we are on that level where we are now in the negotiation. In the future, if this doesn't fare well, if we were to start looking for more potential suitors besides just one, could we not do an RFP right away rather than interview those, maybe if we have 10 people out there that were interested, and so out of those 10 there might be 5 that might be really interested, and then maybe that's when we sit down So instead of hiring a consultant, I think it would be the CEO, the executive staff, maybe the board should also be part of that process to go and network and outreach, spread out our wings and fly so we can see what's out there. And then decide, okay, so and so, we have 5 people that are really interested. Let's see what we can. I mean, this is just the future that I'm kind of espousing right now because I see that there's so much waste of time, really. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I wanted to hear. Thank you. So a couple things. One is that we, as you may recall, we did say that we wanted to get resolution of the deal structure issues with Astria by, we said, 4 to 6 weeks. So we're still on that timeline, and we're trying to get the work done as quickly as possible to really get to a decision point. Does this look like we have the ability to go forward? So we're moving as quickly as we can. Secondly, Commissioner Herron, I think it's I'll just offer my opinion. I think it's a recognition. Your idea is a recognition of all the work that was done to produce the RFP. That's still highly valuable. We did not want to start over by any means. The things that the district has, that commissioners identified as important to us, still hold true today. And we would not want to go out with a whole new RFP process. We've already done that. And so the concept of talking with people about organizations who have expressed some interest but decided not to propose, and find out what was it about the RFP that was the hurdle we couldn't get past. But I would just say we are in good faith working with Astria to get to that point where we know whether or not we are able to move forward, and that was that 4 to 6 week time frame. So we're looking at end of this month and the first week of March to be able to say, does it still look like there's
possibility?
Okay. And I want to address that too because we're using Brad Bird part-time, and I tell you, Skip has been helping us a lot, and there have been times when we haven't used Brad because we've had counsel that's reasonable and is being pretty mindful of the costs. And some of it is just a matter of getting information, and that's taken a long time, getting information from Astria and knowing what's redacted and what's not redacted. So I think our last meeting was how long and what are we spending and where are we, was a major part of the discussion that we had. And we've also, a number of us have gone out and asked some of those people why they were or weren't interested in us. So that is something we as a committee have been concerned about and wondering about. So that's still, there's still some open doors in at least some of us.
So when is the next negotiating meeting?
Val's working on that as we speak.
Okay.
But I expect we talked about it earlier this week, and it really depends on when Commissioner Stryker is back. So
He's in trial for a while.
yeah, but it will likely be after next week that our negotiation is.
Mr. Pollard.
I share Commissioner Herron's concern about the costs, because when they made their proposal, ASK approved it. They said that the most you would spend on us as consultants would be $70,000. And then in addition to that would be another $70,000 for the legal part of the process, as I understand. You have
If the additional part was not legal, it was the due diligence phase, where they're diving into the guts of the
Agreements.
Agreements
and proposals.
And the profile of the proposed affiliate organization. And that's what we're doing right now. And it wasn't an additional 75. I'd have to go back and take a look, but it's more into 25.
Well, I I recall, and I think I have the records where they said 70,000, and then the balance is for all of the legal aspects, and that may be the due diligence you're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
It seems, yeah.
So we understand that. But the thing that also concerns me is that if you look at the history of mergers and acquisitions in Western Washington, none of them have been as a result of an RFP. I believe I'm correct in that. They have been done through personal contacts, and that's why I voted against this as an RFP at the beginning, because I felt that we should go out and make our personal contacts with these other organizations as a first step, and then perhaps turn in consultants. But if you look at the history of mergers in Western Washington, they haven't been from an RFP. A top hospital looks at an RFP, and the attitude is, that's what you use for buying toilet paper. Why didn't they come and speak to us? That's the feedback that I got. So I'm just very concerned about the costs and the process, and I join with Commissioner Perry worrying about things like that.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or discussion? I think that the team is trying to work pretty hard. I think we're trying to be diligent about the finances. I think we're trying to take our time and not make mistakes. And we're having a hard time getting some of the information.
Yeah, that's my question. What is the holdup with Astria? Why are they not? We really need to do, and we're doing our due diligence. They really need to come up with, soon, not 3 months, 4 months from now. What is the holdup?
It's not a holdup of anybody not motivated and not doing it. It is really understanding the proposed model. It's a complex model. And
You get all these lawyers there, all these legal minds, and still.
And the latest bit of work that we did was getting the attorneys from Astria and Skip, and in one meeting, albeit it was brief, with Brad Bird, talking about how the proposed model affected the corporate structure, and most particularly the covenants under our revenue bond. And that is what we're dealing with now, and that is understanding what bondholder requirements would be under this model.
I just hope that we're not dragging our feet here for another.
No.
Yes.
Not. And I will just tell you that the complexity of the issues is hot in this case. This is not a simple transaction.
And I can tell you,
It would not be.
David and I are getting tired of it dragging too, but we have to jump through certain hoops. That's just all there is to it. And we have to get their financials.
One of the things that I mentioned to Mr. Parker is that why can't the rest of the board submit be involved? We want to hear it primarily. I don't want to hear secondary stuff. And the three of us are not included in this. So what we're getting is secondary information. Primary is important for all of us to hear what's taking place here. Come on, we are the commissioners. We need to know what's the deal here. But it comes to us secondary. So I don't know what's going on.
Okay. My only comment is if we had our whole board at all the meetings, they would take a big longer amount of time.
It is taking longer without that anyway, so it doesn't matter. Either way.
Yeah, and they'd have to be public also.
Okay.
Yeah, they'd have to.
Well,
They would be public, yeah.
you win some, you lose some,
Well said,
Okay.
Okay.
We can move on, sorry.
No, that's all right. I think that's what you're here for. So that's okay. All right. We are now, where are we at?
Public comment.
Public comment, thank you. Do we have any public comment? I was wondering when you were going to get up here. No. That's all right. Come on up.
Calm down.
My comment, that last issue we want to talk about I am concerned about this Astria group. I read the RFP. I read everything that's put out with their response. I saw all the black marks, the redacted, financials not available. I haven't looked in the last month or so, so I don't know if there's new things. But I have to admit, first of all, I didn't understand a heck of a lot of it because so much of it, my daughter works at Microsoft, and she comes home and she says, I call it home, it's not her home, my home. She comes and she'll tell me about this paragraph they've discussed at their meeting, and I can't understand a word of it. It's corporate leave, however you say it, corporate, yeah. And it's the same thing with the hospital. I read the RFP and I read what they've responded, and half the things that we were asking for or more and what they're saying, I don't even know what they are. It's gobbledygook to me, and I'm probably been a little more involved than most people. And I tried to talk to other people around the community about this Astria thing and what's happening, and nobody knows anything about it. They don't know anything that's going on. Sorry, Evans, but I know. There's been a few articles, and I cut them out and save them and reread them and do all of that. But if somebody like me doesn't know what's going on, I'm really worried about where we're maybe headed. So what I'd like to do is just suggest a couple of things. When you get to a letter of intent, that to me is almost a no going back. Once you get to a letter of intent, that means you're intending to do something with this other group, and you kind of cut off all other sources, if there are other sources. So first of all, I hope you can do something, Evans and Carol, and I can talk to Carol again too, Carol Ladwig, the editor, pretty good friend of mine, and that we can do something if it's beyond the Valley record. I don't know what it would be, maybe door-to-door flyers, like the school district does for their election. I mean, there's other things that can be done to alert the public to what might be happening with this hospital district. And it would mean that I think there should be a public meeting. Maybe 10 people is all that would show up, but I think it needs to be done. This transparency with a big issue like this is just nowhere out there in the community. And I think partly it's because it is taking, like Emma was saying, it is dragging on, and I understand the complications and needing lots of attorneys and all that kind of thing. But I just have never heard, even with talking with some of you individually and other people involved, staff, whatever, that there's ever been a real push with Evergreen Hospital. I know what we did with Overlake. Yeah, I know they wanted all the revenue and none of the expenses. None of the debt, right. But Evergreen is a public hospital district. They've just taken on Monroe. I just think there needs to be more outreach to Evergreen Hospital, whether it's two other commissioners, like maybe Emma and Jean or Joan, going to see some of their commissioners. It doesn't have to be, quote, an official committee that's negotiating the other things. Just testing the waters, talking to their CEO or their board of commissioners, whoever, just seeing what they may or may not be interested in. An RFP is good, but it isn't the only way to communicate with others. And I just really think that effort needs to be made before we get to a letter of intent. I think we need to have more, if not public input, at least public notification. And I'd be happy to work with some of you, and I've been here a long time and know probably most of the marketing that's gone on in the Valley forever. And there are ways to reach out to the public. And I know Evan's doing what he can in the paper, but honest to goodness, I go around the community, especially on Thursday afternoons and throughout the week. Everybody's newspaper is still laying in their driveways. I mean, not everybody, but you know what I mean. There really is not, and all the people I talked to up on the ridge especially, they don't read the Valley Rec because they don't know any of the people in the Valley, unless their kids are in the sports section. They tell me that all the time. That's the favorite part of the paper. But in terms of what needs to be said publicly, transparency is really, to me, a very high priority. And before you get to that letter of intent, we need lots more information, because I'm really scared to death of this Astria. I really am. I just cannot see at this point, and maybe you can't either at this point, what it is going to do to the voters of Hospital District 4. Okay? Thank you. Yes. Oh,
Well, some very good points were made there. I think that the RFP process is a good enough process. It has the opportunity for getting perfectly good results. So there are 2-3 different ways that you could proceed, and you chose to go with the RFP process. And as I understand it, in this context, there are 3 steps. The first one is you've identified what you want, and I think you're pretty clear on that at a high level. Where you are right now is you're just getting the structure that you're negotiating. It's not really content. It's just how the 2 sides are going to face off against, not against, maybe with each other to discuss it. And then the third part will be the nuts and the bolts. What will you really negotiate for in terms of the affiliation? And I've mentioned my preference in the past. I won't repeat it here. So I don't see any red flags. I think that the process is on. I'm impatient too, but we've promised that something will come up within the next month and a half, and then we'll actually start seeing some real progress. I might suggest that you reach out to a dozen or 15 health and human service organizations throughout the community and invite them personally to some meeting, to some forum, where once you have something, go ahead and explain it to them. And if you invite them and you say you might be stakeholders and this is what's in it for you, then you might be able to appropriate the reach and the authority and the influence that they have in the community, their network, to support what you've negotiated. It might be that, and I've suggested this in the past, that the Valley Record and Living Snoqualmie might be the entity that would host such a meeting. And then you'd be appropriating and working in their network, and they have trust, they have authority, they have influence throughout the valley. And in my mind, that would be a shortcut to be able to involve the greater community for the greater good. So I'm really looking forward to the next meeting that you have, and I suspect that you'll have more to report back at that time. Thank you.